Jeff Carpenter, Hall of Fame. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think you are one of these persons who really should get it, and you just got it yesterday. And I personally must thank you for one of the things you did for the community. I mean, the National CSIRT initiatives, because almost 20 years ago, when you proposed and started these initiatives, me being in NASC and we playing and building the capacity of the national level team, that was so helpful and interesting to talk to others who do the same, and that's the community grew so much now. So could you say some words about how did start everything that time?
Sure. But for 20 years, I worked for the CSIRT Coordination Center, and CSIRT, when it was founded in 1988, and I wasn't there when it started, I came a couple years later, it was formed to help build capacity to do incident response globally. After the Morris worm, when there was really no place to go to get information or resources to help, the United States government created the CSIRT Coordination Center at Carnegie Mellon in the Software Engineering Institute. So from the beginning, CSIRT's mission was to help organizations create capability to be able to respond to incidents, because CSIRT wouldn't be able to respond to everything as the internet grew. Back then, governments really didn't know that much about the internet. They didn't know what to make of it. It wasn't really critical from an economic standpoint. But as the years went on, and the internet was used, more for electronic commerce, more for governmental purposes, and not just an academic network, it became more important for governments that security issues be dealt with. And so at CSIRT, one of the things we did was specifically do outreach to governments to help them create the term that we came up with, CSIRTs with national responsibility. That is, incident response teams that are not focused on a specific organization, but ones that are focused on protecting the economic security and the national security of a country or an economy. And so that's how we got started doing it. We started, the first meeting we had, which was informal, we had in Pittsburgh after the Ottawa first conference, just to explore how can we bring some of the already existing teams at that time together to share information about how to do better, and then share operational information as well. So from there, it just continued to grow. I think they have almost 100 countries participating in the meeting this year.
Yeah, I'm personally proud of being part of this first meeting you just mentioned. And
so there's only 5 countries at that meeting.
Only 5 countries. So that for us, as I said, was a big experience, a very nice experience. I brought the Mac, from which I still use, and this is my loved one. Okay, so yeah. More than 100 teams. By the way, generally the CSIRT idea very much, migrated into the national and governmental level, which is good for all of us. And I always explaining this by saying that generally the CERT and CSIRT idea was and is so successful that for many countries, many economies, it is considered to be the best solution for organizing the whole cybersecurity ecosystem. So that's what we observe in Poland, when in our legal system, the CSIRT are the most operational and most important. By the way, I think that I just realized that you probably should at Carnegie Mellon they built the monument of Morris Worm, which is your founding father, right?
Yes, it was the Morris Worm, which ultimately resulted in the CSIRT Coordination Center.
It was so quickly after it, yeah, because that was the beginning of November.
It was in November, and December is when the Department of Defense asked Carnegie Mellon to stand up the CSIRT Coordination Center, and Rich Pethia, who was the longtime director of CSIRT, was traveling that day, and so he ended up getting tasked to be the director to create the program.
More than 30 years. Oh gosh, that's history already.
Correct.
and nice that still so many people remember that times, and we can have a whole vision, whole picture of how community.
Well, FIRST's origin also comes from that time as well, because again, that was actually before we had the national CSIRT focus. We knew at CSIRT that we couldn't do it all ourselves. We couldn't have one organization. People depend on one organization. We had to create a network of teams. In fact, the first name the conceptual name of FIRST was called the CSIRT system. There's actually still there was a transparency, that image is still floating around, of the first conception of what later became FIRST, which is a network of teams with different constituencies, different responsibilities. It was a combination of both incident response teams and product security teams, all the way from the beginning, working together on challenges in our industry. That later became the organization we know today as FIRST.
That's all interesting, and also I very much like your yesterday's speech after awarding of being a member of Hall of Fame of FIRST, because I can imagine it is probably quite difficult, tough thing to just decide what to say in such moments. So probably you always feel like that must be something so important, but on the other hand, you don't want to be boring. Just let's be honest. But I think you found the point, and I like this what you said about our priorities, because especially with this, what we can learn from other professions, because we're just telling about this history. This is relatively short history comparing to other professions. So could you just brief our listeners which professions you mentioned and how we could learn from them, which they have rather thousands of years even of experience, which we could just use?
Sure. As I mentioned yesterday, doctors have been around for 2,500 years, firefighters 2,000. Lots of other professions have thousands of years that they've learned and evolved, and we have 35 years in incident response. And I think there's a lot of professions that we can learn from. I mean, even library science. I mean, I took a course offered by the American Library Association, just trying to understand how libraries share information and what can we learn from what librarians whose profession is information. But as I mentioned yesterday, law enforcement, I think, is the first profession that we learned from, how to do an investigation, how to ask questions. Sometimes you get information and it's not accurate, so how do you assess the accuracy? How do you draw conclusions from facts? That's probably the first profession that we learned from. But as you know, I'm a volunteer firefighter, and I believe the fire service, there's lots of learning from the fire service that we can have in our incident response profession. The protect, prevention, response, detection, those key components of the fire service are almost identical to incident response. I think in every one of those, there's things that we can learn from the fire service.
Yeah, also quite often just bringing this example of the medical sector, the health sector, right? Because they operate in quite a similar manner, like we do. And the maybe not funny is the best word, but interesting thing is that nowadays what I observe and in Poland, for example, but I think it is quite similar in other countries, that this is probably one of the sectors we are mentioning when we are discussing which sector should be invested more, right? So I think this is a very good opportunity just coming to this sector, because we need, as the country's economies, to strengthen this sector in terms of cybersecurity. Also to, at the same moment, ask what you know about the emergency services and how they should be organized. Maybe this is also the method of explaining them the need and the necessity of having cybersecurity as a part of the whole ecosystem, right?
I totally agree with you. And, generally, when you look at the fire service is a component of the broader emergency services, which includes, health and medical services as well. I'd like to give you a couple examples of why I think the fire service is a good, if that's okay. In the fire service, people, you'll have kids that, run to the window and see a fire engine going down the street, and they may say fire engine, fire truck. Those are actually different things. An engine and a truck are different things. An engine has a pump and it puts the fire out. A truck has ladders and is used for rescue, search and rescue, and ventilation. And so when you see
different engine, tooling, right?
Exactly. The engine gets on the scene, they go to the fire, they want to put the fire out. The truck gets on the scene, they're going to go room to room and look for patients, et cetera, in the building. So how does that relate to incident response? Well, technical people in incident response, they gravitate to the engine company. They want to get the adversary out of the network, put the fire out. But that's not the only thing that has to happen in an incident. It's becoming increasingly important with the privacy laws and regulations. They're becoming more and more complicated to have to quickly understand what information has been exposed, what information has been stolen, and searching through what has happened to determine what information have I lost, who am I going to have to notify. And in the past, that was kind of done after the fact. You get the adversary out, and then you go back and look at what information you lost. Now we kind of have to do them in parallel, just like the engine company and the truck company. So you got to have some people are the engine company getting the adversary out of the network. Some people are the truck company trying to figure out what information have we lost. So that's just one example where I think a fire service analogy helps us, reassess our approach to an incident.
So in your opinion, this is the potential method how we could divide our team skill sets and organize the work with appropriate tooling, of course, in our teams. How you could compare it to the things which are the most modern and the most, on the rising trend, like SOCs, ISACs, and CSIRTs. How to use these experiences and models in our world?
Well, I can tell you in the instance that I work in an incident response consulting organization, so we're working with customers that are having incidents. What brought this to light is the attorneys for those customers are telling them, it's nice you're focused on getting the adversary out. We need to know right now what information has leaked, because we've got all these legal entities that we have to potentially notify. So it's the lawyers, or at least in the United States, are driving the push to more quickly understand what has happened, and that's forcing a response to be divided in two almost, where you have one unit is focused on, the search and rescue, and the other unit is focused on putting the fire out. So it's concern about privacy laws and regulations and legal liability, which is driving that change in how we respond.
Yeah, so the speech was very nice. What we are talking about now is so interesting. And then, so your opinion about how actually practically we could implement it in our ecosystem. Even the first organization, because there are nice ideas, but I don't see like we are with ongoing actions with these ideas now. So what could practically be done? Like we need another SIG, for example. How to do that? How to continuously bring these experiences? Because even with these few examples, I have no doubts it is so beneficial.
Yeah, so I think you have to start with, take a look for any individual organization. How would they implement this? And you have to get back to the plans, the planning process for creating your incident response plan, the document you use as your guide when you have an incident, which is just in the fire service. They have pre-plans that this is our plans for incident response incident. And you have to have in there the concept that when you create the team that's going to respond to an incident, that it has 2 cells in it, which are going to be focused on 2 different missions. And then you have to make sure you have appropriate staffing, whether it's people that's on your staff or you have contractors that are going to come in to help you perform that function. And then you drill to it. The fire company does drills. We do exercises. You conduct exercises and you do them. I haven't seen a lot of exercising that's been focused on that kind of division of labor, but that's kind of what you have to do. You have to test it. So what could FIRST do? FIRST could provide training on how to do that, training on how to create a plan that takes that into consideration. Do some exercising, sample exercises for testing that. FIRST, in my mind, is best when it's helping people understand how to build their capability and make their capability stronger.
Yeah, so that's what we could wish to FIRST, right? And also wish me personally, my wishing are that the knowledge and experienced people like you and the rest of people from the Hall of Fame will be used to building that. Jeff, thank you very much, and once more, congratulations.
Thank you very
all
much.
the best.
Thank you. I appreciate it.